Hey Sozo Kids team, Allison here, and if you're watching this training, you are either one of our lead teachers, our classroom assistants, or you're training to be for our elementary class. I'm super glad you're here and so excited to have you as part of our dream team. We're going to walk through just some basics of our elementary class, kind of a flow of service, some of our curriculum, where to find materials, and what our class setup looks like. We're going to answer all your basic questions before you step into a class. So hang with me and we'll get you all the information you need. All right, so let's talk about our elementary service. In our elementary class, we are hosting kids 1st through 5th grade, and all of our classes have a very similar flow to the style of service, okay? With this in mind, we want kids to be able to age out of one group, move into the next, and have a very similar flow and similar expectations as they move up across the board. With each and every class, everything is modified based on attention span, ages, things like that, but it keeps a consistency and then helps kids to age up to their appropriate level as needed. So when kids arrive, they're gonna check in here at the kiosks right next to me. We've got 2 computer kiosks set up, and so kids will check in, get going, and then enter here for the elementary class. Typically we'll have one leader at the door greeting families as they come in the door, as they're checking in. If you notice that there's a kid who looks like they haven't been here before, maybe you know they're a first-time visitor, get them acclimated, help them find a friend that's maybe similar in age or composure as them. Like if it's a pretty shy child, maybe pair them with someone else who isn't super loud and crazy, just so it doesn't scare them their first time in. Just somebody like that they can kind of pal around with and sit in color with, or if it's a really outgoing kid, they might want to play with the balls and they'll just be up and active. So help them find a friend, get plugged in, and all of that. All right, so the second leader in the class can definitely be engaging and interacting with our students as well. You can either be playing games with them, just make sure you keep an eye on the entire room, or if your style is more kind of observe from the perimeter, definitely do that as well. Just be approachable for kids to come to you as needed, and make sure everyone's having a good time. So for the multi-purpose room, we do use one door for entry and exit, and everything else remains locked with the exception of bathroom breaks. So again, that is this door right here. Kids come in, come out through the same door. We just keep it a nice, smooth process so that we can keep track of where our kids are at. So we're gonna head inside, check out the setup of the room, check out where you can find your supplies and curriculum. So stay tuned, we'll be right there. Okay, so in regards to setup for the classroom, typically when you walk in, you will have a pretty blank canvas just like this. I'm gonna walk you through where to find your tables, chairs, supplies, all of the things that you will need. Oftentimes on a Sunday morning when I'm physically present, I will have the room preset and things like that. However, in upcoming seasons, if there are days that I am out or on leave for different things, 9 o'clock class, you will be responsible for setting up the room and getting it how you would like it. And then 11 o'clock class, you would be tearing down. So if you walk into a room that's just blank like this, let me walk you through where to find everything you need. All right, so as we walk in here, the room is a little bit more set up than normal, but at the front of our multi-purpose room, we have 2 covered closets. And if you walk all the way over to the one on the far side of the room, nearest the windows, you will find chair racks and tables and all of those things just in there for you to pull out and set up as needed. Turning to the back of the room, the brown door that is on the right side has all of our supplies and curriculum for the class. As you see here, this is just a basic layout of a setup of our classroom. Typically, half the room is open for free play with balls and hula hoops and things like that. The other half is more for structured activities like coloring and games. You can set up the classroom in a way that works for your flow and teaching style, but this is just a sample of what we do. It splits up the room, it allows for some controlled busyness in the room and variety of activities for the kids. So up front, we have our seating for our lesson time. And again, there's no right or wrong way to set this up. This is just what our usual flow looks like, and if this works for you, keep it up, that's great. Or if there's something different that works for your flow and teaching style, then feel free to change it up as well. 11 a.m. class Everything's going to be preset when you arrive, so you will be responsible for the cleanup side, making sure that materials, toys, games, things like that get put back in the closet. The only exception is tables and chairs. Those can be left out as the room is utilized by different groups throughout the week, like our Sozo youth. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You'll just want to make sure that lights are off and doors are closed and locked when you leave the classroom. Okay, so last but not least, we're going to head back to the multi-purpose closet and give you guys a walkthrough of what we've got going on in there. This might not be the most important piece, but it definitely has the most content, because this is where you're going to find everything you need to know to set yourself up for success for teaching and leading on a Sunday morning. Okay, so before we continue, this door is always locked. We just want to be a good steward of our materials and keeping track of things. So you will need a key for this room. We do keep a key if you head down the hall toward the nursery. On the back counter, there is a purple pencil box. Now, we don't announce this to everyone. It's not labeled because we don't need everyone knowing, hey, there's keys to the church in here. But it does have a key that's labeled for the multi-purpose closet. You'll grab that, unlock your door, prop it open, take the key back so it can be found for the next class, and then you have your supplies. So we're just going to walk through this closet a little bit, and I'm going to show you kind of where everything is, what is accessible, and all of that good stuff. So when you first walk in, we've got this, we're going to start on the left side and then move to the right side. So this first shelf here is all Sozo youth material. I leave this shelf alone for the most part, and that is for youth purposes. Okay, this next shelf here in the middle is all Sozo kids materials. Okay, this is going to be your main shelf for Sunday mornings. You've got lots of extra things on the top couple shelves. Down here, we've got our current season series materials. So in here, you'll find things like your take-home books, candy, Bibles, sometimes some props for class, things like that. These are going to be your material boxes. So this one in the middle is your current quarter of curriculum. If we open it up, this Sunday we are moving on to week 9 or 10, I believe. 9 sounds right. Maybe 10. But everything is labeled by weeks numbers. You can find that in here. And then as we get curriculum set for the following quarter, you can find that in the next box over. So we just finished this for the month of June through August. And then we'll get the next round of curriculum going when it's available. The next two shelves down are materials that you will probably use on a regular basis. We have our board games and things in here. Our Legos, we use those every single Sunday. And then at the bottom is some additional craft supplies and props. One more thing to note on this shelf, some of these boxes are in the process of getting relabeled, but this is going to be our Sunday supplies for the summer quarter. Now, sometimes lessons call for extra props or crafts or things like that, so maybe you need index cards one week or you need a beach ball one week. I am going to stock all of this stuff for the summer, so when you come in for Sunday morning, say you've reviewed your lesson and you need props A, B, and C. Go ahead, take this box down, pull the props you need for that week, use them for Sunday morning, and then put them back when you're done. And then the person for next Sunday will do exactly the same. Okay, so that's something that's a little bit different this season that we are going to try and see how that works, just so materials are always at everyone's disposal, and we're good to go. Okay, moving right on down the line, this last shelf here is pretty much multi-use. Everyone can use it. There's a couple of things that are specifically for kids, but that is okay. The stuff on the top shelf is really mostly seasonal use. The stuff in the middle two shelves here are things like ping pong balls, scooter boards. A lot of times the youth are using these items, but there are things like cones or indoor games or inflatable games that we might want to use, indoor bowling, things like that. These two bins down here are additional prizes that we can use, and I think we've got some extra prizes in that box on the bottom as well. So just additional prizes when our stock and supply is running low, we can refill with those. And then at the bottom we have giant checkers as well. That's a game that you can pull out on Sundays, things like that. Moving right along, we have some excess overflow of our play balls and hula hoops, things like that. Back here, this is a new item for Sozo Kids. So this has all of our prizes, Bibles, things that we use on a regular basis. So these will get labeled here in time. These are going to be our devotional books that we hand out at the beginning of the quarter. And our cafe coloring contests will be in here as well. Second drawer are Bibles that kids can use and borrow during church. The third drawer here is prizes for our first-time guests. So as we have a first-time guest, they get to select a prize. We thank them for coming, all of those things. Drawer 4 is birthday prizes. Now some of these are a little bit of a quote-unquote bigger prize, if you will. But birthday prizes for those celebrating birthdays. So we always ask, who's had a birthday in the last week? And if anyone has had one, we can sing, we can shout happy birthday, we can give them a prize, all of the fun things. And then last at the bottom, every so often we give out like a big prize. So we've got some Sozo t-shirts in kid sizes, some beach balls, some plushie items, things like that. So if you're just feeling like incentivizing the kids, like, hey, I'm gonna pick the top student, boy and girl, at the end of church, you can use these at your discretion as well. All right, and the last section here, I'll show you from a couple of angles, but this is also a lot of multi-use space. Okay, so this is stuff that we've set up for success for everyone to use. If youth comes in and needs supplies, if Heritage comes in and needs supplies, or Sozo Kids, or anyone just using the multi-purpose room, this is a great spot for them to find that. So up top, we've got just basic supplies, paper, coloring pages based by season, color books, things like that. And then down below, all of these are basic classroom supplies. Okay, there's more on the bottom. Some of the ones on the bottom are like teacher supplies, like permanent markers, whiteboard markers, things like that. Again, all of these will be labeled here within the next short stint. And I'm a little bit OCD, so I try to put them in alphabetical order. Definitely label side out, just so anyone using them can find what they need quickly. But I don't expect everyone to put these back in alphabetical order. That's just how my brain operates. We do have a backup first aid kit in here that you can reference as well. And then underneath in these bins, we have more of our sports equipment. So all of this is up for use, so whether you're pulling out and setting up for the day or cleaning up, just please make sure you put things back where they belong. A clean home is a happy home, and it helps everyone find what they need each time they come in to use it. So we expect the same from anyone using this closet. If they pulled it out from somewhere, they put it back in that same spot. And if you're having any issues, let me know. I'm always happy to help answer questions, or if we're not keeping it as clean and tidy as we need to, then I can help facilitate that as well. All right, now that we've walked through what setup and teardown looks like, we're gonna go ahead and go through a quick flow of service. This is provided in your materials bin as well, so that you can reference that each week. So when kids arrive during check-in, we have free time pretty much for the duration of check-in. At about 10 after, we will start a 5-minute countdown, and at that point, we have kids start to clean their materials up, find a seat, or if they need to, they can jump in line for a bathroom or water break. They should do this before service starts, because once we get going, we really don't want kids to leave, especially during the lesson portion. So we really encourage kids, go before you go, make sure you use those restroom breaks, and just get the things you need to be successful during Kids Church. Once countdowns are done, we do a brief welcome, introduction, open in prayer, and immediately start with worship, similar to that of the main service. We'll typically do 2 to 3 songs. Those are queued up on a Sunday Service Today playlist. You can also see this in our media training. That is also part of these shorts. Or the kids have the freedom to kind of pick and choose which songs, or if you're feeling led a certain direction, you can feel free to go through our playlist as well and select songs that you would like for the morning. We play those off of YouTube back on our soundboard and get that all queued up before service starts. Right after our worship, we do tithes and offering, and then we take some time for announcements. Announcements consist of greeting first-time guests, celebrating birthdays, and any general announcements that we have. Typically, if we have anything pressing coming up, I will have an announcement sheet that's got anything listed that you can promote. Otherwise, we'll move quickly through that, and then we can jump into our lesson. Lesson time is always interesting, and I always gauge it based on the kids' ability to sit still and listen. We are working with kids, so it's hard to get them to sit still for large periods of time. Our curriculum is really great at having some interactive pieces, so whether it's part of the kids getting up or all of the kids, there's different ways that you can engage and switch up the lesson, so it goes from interactive to sitting and listening to more interactive. So keep going with our lesson. Once the lesson is done, we can close in prayer, salvation call, and or vice versa, salvation call and prayer. And then based on your discretion, we can either have some outside time if you feel comfortable with that. We do have the park across the way that kids can play at. Otherwise, just some more free time inside is good as well. If kids want time to work on their take-home page, they can do that as well. Again, based on what service you're serving in. At 9 o'clock, sometimes we will get through some of the content together. The 11 o'clock class typically has more kids and more energy, so we don't always get through those materials. That is okay. There's no right or wrong way to do the class as long as it works with a flow for you and your kids. Another great option is if you or your co-leader is prepared to play a game at the end, just making up a fun, silly game. It can be as simple as Simon Says, red light, green light, whatever, just something productive to keep the kids together, playing and having fun. That's always an awesome option to come prepared with as well. And then for checkout, we mimic similar what we did to check in. We'll station one person by the door to collect parent tags, and then one person in the room, again, interacting with kids, helping them as they get called for pickup to come and grab their stuff, get to the door, all of those things, and then we clean up and go home. Alright guys, so I thought my last bit was the final bit of content. I did want to touch briefly on curriculum. So for about the last, I believe year and a half, we have been using D6 curriculum. D6 is based on the scripture Deuteronomy 6, verses 4 through 9. And I'm going to go ahead and read that here. It says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the dorm frames of your houses and on your gates." Okay, so these scriptures are really about encouraging and empowering parents to be the primary disciplers of their children. Now, we at church are to come alongside and support kids in this spiritual growth. So while these kids are in your class, just remember for that hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on if we have a guest speaker, you are spiritually guiding these kids. So with our curriculum, we've got some take-home resources that are great for partnering with the parents and putting some resources in their hands, as well as what we're utilizing at church. So all kids across the board are using D6 curriculum, from nursery up through elementary. So the themes typically are pretty similar. Sometimes they differ and vary a little bit based on the content that's being covered. But this makes for easier at-home discipleship opportunities. Because if you've got 3 kids in different classes and you're talking about 3 different Bible stories or 3 different themes, that gets a little bit tricky. But when you're talking and maybe you're talking about the story of Esther, and then your preschooler chimes in and says, "Hey, we talked about that too." And then they can engage in a very simple way, but you guys can have at-home family discussions, or parents can have at-home family discussions. So we're doing that intentionally to make sure that families are equipped and ready to have these conversations at home. So each week a new lesson is covered, but it's typically under kind of the same branch for about a month. The same key scripture is used for memory work for that month, and we just continue to work through either that person's story, if it's a character in the Bible, or that book of the Bible. So supplemental materials can be found in the gray bins that I showed you behind me. Those have all of your supplement materials, things like that, and then anything to reinforce the lessons. So one thing that I always highly encourage is please make sure you go over your lessons and materials before you come. Okay, this sets you up for success. This sets your kids up for success as they are learning, and it just helps everyone move forward on the same page. So as you go through your teacher book, you will find highlighted sections in each lesson. Those are the materials that I have prepared based on typically ability of the kids, and then secondarily the materials we have on hand. So if it calls for paint, or I've had weird lessons call for like rice or something. Okay, I don't have rice on hand, so I'm not going to do that activity. I'm probably going to do the one that I can throw some pictures in a PowerPoint or something like that. So I've pre-selected those, but if you want to bring in the materials to do the other one because you think, oh, this one sounds really cool, you are welcome to do that. It's just not something I have on hand on site. One more thing to note, each week's lesson does have a ton of material, okay? It's very likely that you might not cover it all in a week, so feel free to pick and choose and pull out pieces that you think are really going to hit home with your kids that particular week. At a minimum, we do want to be teaching the lessons and helping kids walk away with kind of that big idea or that objective that's noted in our lesson. But otherwise, you guys are teachers, you're getting to know the kids, so use your discretion and prepare the lessons that work for you and that work for your kiddos. So I hope this helps as you get ready to jump in and get started with Sozo Kids Elementary. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions.